Good morning, welcome to 59 Minutes. My name is Levi Kones. This particular morning, we're going to be discussing about matters to do with training, getting, of course, personal development, things like that. To join me in that discussion, lady and the gentleman, I have with me Victor Allen, who is the co-founder of Zentori Conference, as well as Damaris, who is the director right there. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Glad to have you guys here.
Thank you.
Maybe you can tell me, either of you can go. What exactly is Zentori?
You go.
Okay, so Zentori is a training center that we have established here. It's established here in Nairobi. The idea is that we want to have a facility that we can really have to work with NGOs and various partners to bring high quality training to the people of Nairobi.
Yeah, and we host conferences as well. So if somebody is interested in using our facility as a conference center or doing video conferencing, they can do that as well.
Okay. Mm-hmm. What led to the birth of this idea?
That's interesting. That's a very interesting question. If you've ever had a fundi come to your house and you've been happy with him, then great. But most people I speak to, they've had some challenges. Challenges in quality, challenges in the level of excellence. And we thought there was a need to really try to raise the bar. And so what we wanted to do was to have a facility whereby we could actually help in doing that. Zentori was born because we understand that everybody has a potential. Everybody, there's a lot of very, very smart people, very, very capable people here in Kenya, particularly in technology sector. But there are other people who really want to get where they want to get to, but they don't necessarily have the opportunity to do so. So in Zentori, as Damaris said, we partner with NGOs and other partners to really bring the level of quality of training that we want to people to have in a variety of areas. And I'm sure we'll go through some of those a bit later on. Mm-hmm.
I'll also add, so you realize that most training facilities that you find in Kenya or in Nairobi usually require for you to be in a hotel environment or a particular huge institution. But there are some people who just want to be in a place where they go there and come back home. They don't necessarily want to eat hotel food, and we thought that's going to be very creative to be able to have a facility where somebody can just walk in, and if they want to go and have lunch at home, they can go and have lunch at home and then come back and continue with their training. Mm-hmm. And remember, this also happened around the time of COVID, and a lot of kids were at home, and a lot of kids who are not capable, whose parents do not have access to internet, were not able to really do virtual learning. But our facility is such that somebody can actually, even a child who is not having good facilities at home, can walk into our facilities, have access to training, and go back home and do it successfully. So they can carry their packed lunch and come. If you're going to a hotel, they wouldn't allow you to bring your packed lunch and do the training there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So when we're talking about training, what exactly are we saying?
You mean what we offer, the type of training we offer? So things like leadership, for example, leadership training. We offer Excel training, so beginners, intermediate, advanced level training. Training like, for example, one thing that's very close to me is first aid. For example, at home, many of the house helps may not be conversant with first aid. So if something happens, for example, a child chokes, what do you do? How do you deal with that situation? We know of stories where, it didn't end in a very good way. Children have passed on, and we want to bring that to the average household to make sure that people are capable, know what to do in certain situations. If you have a road accident, for example, that first aid will come into that as well, because if an ambulance is getting there and it takes half an hour and somebody's bleeding out, what do you do? All those kind of things. We want to make it very practical as well. So that's the kind of training we do. We offer training in nutrition so that people understand what it is they're putting into their bodies, what value it is that they have in terms of things that they eat, and how to really have a really healthy lifestyle. and make the maximum and the most of their bodies that God has given us. So there's other things that we do, but those are some of the things that we have on offer.
Yeah, I mean, the others I could probably add is we basically offer training in almost anything you can think of, but mostly things to do with personal development. We've also partnered with institutions that are taking care of disabled, and we host them to be able to instill in them, personal development skills, so that they are independent, they are able to cook on their own, they are able to take care of themselves, but also to feel valuable. So we do so many different kinds of trainings, and we partner with the best. And we also have an equipment, a facility that we have there that can allow anybody in the world to train anybody from anywhere. So we have that hub, but anybody can plug in, and we can end up having the best forensics expert from the US training somebody here in Kenya on forensics, for example. Just giving an example, yeah.
Yeah. So let me just zero in on leadership a bit. And a lot of people talk about training now, and in terms of leadership, and especially in a Kenyan context. What are we lacking that we really need to plug into?
That's an interesting question. I really like the aspect of leadership. I believe that, first of all, let me just say from a general perspective, right? A person cannot lead unless he knows how to lead himself. There are things that I believe that the common understanding, not common understanding, I guess, but for people who are new to leadership, it's as though you lead because you are the boss, and not by example. The leadership is by example, and to train somebody to lead by example is the most difficult thing to do. If you have in your idea that you're a leadership because of title, then you're probably not going to be as effective as you could be, and that's really what we try to introduce in terms of leadership, right? Leadership is first of all commitment. It's a servant leadership model, right? So those are the kind of ideas we want to try and get people to know, and also as I said at the beginning, you lead by example. So the first thing you do is, if you won't ask somebody to do something that you yourself won't do. And the interesting thing is that when people see you committed to that, somehow you end up getting followers, and you end up being a leader without realizing, a good leader without realizing it. And let's face it, everybody's a leader. Whether you lead somebody in one way or the other, whatever you do, you're an example to somebody.
True.
Yeah. I mean, I could also add, I believe that one of the most basic things that we lack as a society is emotional intelligence, and you see it a lot, like in social media, in a lot of places. I actually, I was never aware of it until I went through training, and I realized, oh my goodness, my eyes have been opened. So I think as a society, we have believed in a way, in a style of managing things, which is not really good. We tend to be very defensive or responsive in certain ways when things happen. And I believe that, with training on leadership or just how to manage conflicts and things like that, it helps someone significantly. You'll see it from most of our homes that, most homes actually are lacking a leader. Yes, I mean, we know that most of the times we expect that the man is the head of the home, and yes, they will be the head of the home. But what does that come with? What does it require for you to be the head of the family? So that trickles down to the point that if you are raised without really knowing what being a leader is, then you lack it, and then it gets to your job and all that. Mm-hmm. So yes.
Can I just add one more thing about leadership?
Sure.
There's a quote that we use, especially on the website, about leadership. And leadership, it's not original, it was by Rosalind Carter, the late wife of the ex-president, Jimmy Carter. She said, a leader takes people where they want to go, but the great leader takes people where they don't necessarily want to go, but they ought to be, which suggests that a leader also should expect conflict, but he shouldn't be timid about making the right decisions, when it comes to leadership. And I think those are the things I think that are really lacking. You do things right because it's right, because you know it's right for people. And sometimes you're going to get some pushback. But because of your convictions, you know that when you get to the end, people turn around and say, yes, this person was going. But, to your point, we also need to have some emotional intelligence as well. You're not dragging people by the throat, but you're really leading them by showing them the way. And this is
let me
where
just ask you guys, because this happens, like, especially in our country a lot. I'm sure you're a bit conversant with our politics, and we have got new governors, for example, in office. Now, one of the things we see counties spend a lot of money on is training. And usually it will be they'll take people to South Africa or Zanzibar, Dubai, somewhere, and spend huge sums of money. And come back, and most guys will complain and say, we don't really see where this went. Now you're in Kenya, you have your training center right here. Speak to the idea of cost and value, and why they would need to tap into what you have.
That's a very good point, actually, and that's one of the reasons our training is. We have I would say a medium-sized facility, right? I would say the maximum is anywhere between. Well, we can accommodate anywhere between 30 and 50 people. It's small enough because I think leadership you can't do a conference style with thousands of people. You don't get the personal touch that you need to be able to lead and guide.
Yeah, it's like a classroom.
Yeah, exactly. And so you gel together, you network together, you learn from each other. And also the costs are such that, if you go to you mentioned about a hotel, if you go to a hotel, there's vast overheads. We have one room, but we can separate those rooms into various rooms. We have a large area we can cut into 4 rooms. So you can have if you want to have breakout sessions, you can do that. You have the balcony, we can go out on the balcony. It's a really good networking, intimate session so that people can really meet together and they can learn from each other. And so they can share, because sometimes we don't want to share. Sometimes people are timid because maybe they haven't been very good leaders in the past. They don't want to admit they haven't been good leaders. But when you're in an environment just like this, you can really put everything on the table, and you can really take people from where they are to where they really ought to be. And I think that's the beauty of our facility, that it's small, it's intimate. We have a state-of-the-art facility that really gets people involved and engaged. And I think that's really the difference that we make.
Yeah, and I think we also really want our training to count. We're not necessarily interested in, because if the interest or if the motive of people traveling to South Africa, I'm just talking to the example you gave, was to go and see South Africa, then they're not necessarily going to learn anything there. They will go into South Africa
and to get allowances.
They will get allowances and they get shopping. And what we do is, if somebody requests us for a particular training they want to do, then we sit down together with them and really find out what is the expected outcome. And we tailor the training to make sure that all the people who come to that training are going to benefit. So it has to be personal driven. It shouldn't be us imposing on you training that you probably do not want, and you just come because you want to spend some county government money. And that's why we're also not in a hotel, because most of those kinds of trainings want to be in a 5-star hotel. And we want you to be coming to us because you realized you really need Excel training, and you want to come out of this place the best Excel person that your institution has. Or if you've realized in your house that you cannot afford to have an accident when you leave your house behind, so you bring your nanny and we train them, and when they go back, you're not having accidents because you were at work and your nanny didn't know what to do. So it has to be personally driven. It's not us imposing it on you.
Yeah. What do you say to people who say, we're okay, we don't need training, we're at work, we've got our departments, everything is running?
Well, I mean, they have a right to say that, of course. But I think, the idea here is that we really want to try and lift the quality. I think that marketing sells the first device or your first product, but quality keeps them coming back. And I think that the quality of training that you do, or we do, or that we offer, is something that I believe that over time And we can't change. You can't change people's minds overnight. But everybody likes quality. Everybody wants to know. When you come to our training sessions, there's an exam. You don't just come and you're on your phone. You leave the phone outside. You come to do some serious work and some serious training and to learn something serious. So when you go back out, you can whoever's employing you or wherever you're going, you can have confidence. They can have confidence that when they've been to our center and they leave, they know what they're doing. And so that's we can't speak to those who think they don't want training, but what we can do is we can offer training to those who believe they need it, and we can also give our rationale as to why. And of course, when they go through, then they will be able to reflect, write up their feelings about what they did in the training, so that others can also be inspired.
Yeah, you think everyone could learn something?
Absolutely.
Everybody can learn something. We never stop learning. We never stop learning. Through our experiences, through things that other people share with us. There are things that you thought you learned and thought you knew, and then somebody comes with a different perspective, and suddenly it just opens up your understanding a little bit more. So I think that that's what we're there for. Learning never stops.
And I can give you an example. I at some point I already obtained my PhD and a postdoc of 3 years, and I was working somewhere, and I thought, I am done learning. I'm just good the way I am. And then I was offered this opportunity for leadership training and mentorship. And even initially, the first round that I was offered, I thought I had learned everything there was to learn, and I didn't apply. But when I went into that training, leadership training and mentorship, I have learned so much. And I would tell anybody who speaks like that, you stop learning when you die. You actually learn every single day. There's so much more you learn. And it's not just one way that, I've reached this level, so I want to learn from somebody else. You learn from your mother all the time. You learn from the person who is working for you at home, the person who is keeping your grass, your lawns well manicured. You learn every day from anybody and everybody you meet, even from a child. So you don't stop learning.
That's true. I'm loving hearing that, because even in my house, that's a statement. You'll hear it. You've learned something new today. Sometimes it's from the child telling you.
Yes.
They tell you something about this particular program, and then you say, "You've learned something new today."
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's really important.
It's really, really important. And we talk about how we treat, for example, people who are in some type of business that involves one-on-one with customers. Yes. And we talk about customer experiences. And they're not just, because most of us talk about marketing, sales, but we forget many times to talk about how we are handling the customer, because a lot of difference is made between how you handle me and whether I come back or I don't come back. Because as we say, people forget what you did, what they say, but they don't forget how you made them feel.
That's right.
How do you speak to that in your training, in as far as how we interact with each other and make sure that we are on the right frame of mind when we are dealing with people in the workplace?
That is such a good question. In fact, I'm working with one of the NGOs now to prepare some information on soft skills. Soft skills is something I think that's very underrated, because people think it's just about talking to somebody. But you're right. People never forget the way you made them feel. But if you make them feel like they're the only thing that matters, it's amazing what can happen. And I think a lot of that is due to the way we're brought up as well, right? We want to believe that we are in control. We want to believe that we have the authority and to do. But the reality is, when you come down to somebody's level and you forget about everything that you've done and all the things that you've learned, all the qualifications you have, when you speak to somebody on a one-on-one level and you really make yourself vulnerable, not in a personal way, but vulnerable from a company perspective, it's amazing what people will do. And I think, we both were in South Africa for a while. I remember I had to say to somebody that I went into one of not the NGOs, one of the mobile network operators. I had to say to them, if all you guys did was to change your attitude towards a customer, you wouldn't need to employ anyone else. Your bottom line would double. because people were leaving. They say, I would never go back to that place because of the way they treated me.
Yeah.
And most of them were, well, the attitude was, we don't owe you anything. You owe us. They don't realize that it's the customers that pay them that allows them to pay their bills. So the customer is always right. Even if they're not right, you have to find some way of finding some common ground. And that's not easy to do. It's not an easy thing to do, particularly in a society where we're always trying to strive to be the best and to be the managers and to be the ones that are in charge. It's not easy to do. And some things that we try to teach people is exactly that. How do you do these soft skills? How do you actually learn to put the customer first and to smile with the customer? It's not about you. We take it too personally, and it's not about personal things.
Yeah.
And that's what we try.
And sometimes it's just over the phone, because if you call here and you find somebody who speaks to you a certain way, you label all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And that is also both ways. I mean, even for me as a customer, I shouldn't judge you. I mean, so this training, it goes both ways. As much as you expect the person who is offering the services to be kind, you also need to really
execute the same.
Yeah. So it's both ways. That maturity has to come from both ways. And I mean, I think generally in our society, we need to learn that it's okay not to be right. And, most of us feel so embarrassed, like if we've done something wrong, you just want to disappear. But then there's an option to say, I was wrong, I'm sorry, or how can I make the situation better? I didn't do it right last time. But most of us really don't know how to do that. And it's from both sides, customer or the service provider as well.
All right. We'll take our first break on that note. We'll be right back. We're talking about training, leadership, and all that entails. Don't go away.